Oh, hi, what's up?
The hardest things about being a kid
Don't listen to my
is
stream. Turn it off immediately. Why are you listening when we talk? Ever.
maybe somebody else. Maybe there's a
Oh. Hello, hello? Oh, he can't hear me.
good movie on this actually.
Oh.
Remind me after.
Is this Steve or is this some producer?
Oh, hi, what's up?
No, it's me.
Oh, hey.
Hardest things about being a kid.
No, you're
Listen
listening to my stream. Oh, God, he's listening to my stream.
Yes, this is very
You can't
confusing.
hear my Discord. You've got my stream open in the background.
I've got your stream open in the background.
Oh, wait, no, wait. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, no. Okay, we're good. Never mind. It's good. Oh, hi, what's up?
Hey, Steve. So I've got a new book. I've been trying to send it to you, but you don't respond to the DMs on Twitter. I guess this thing is the best. This is the best means of communication. Discord, which I'm never on except for this.
Discord or email, yeah.
Discord or email, yeah.
Let's see here. It's asking me some Dode switch. Okay. Well, I've got a new book. It's called Kakistocracy. It was out.
Wait.
yesterday.
Hold on, just testing to see if I'm bleeding through. Okay, wait. I'm trying to bring you up on stream so they can see you. Hold on. Wait. Hold on. Not that. There we go. And then, okay. All right. Now they can see you. Hi.
Cool. Okay. Well,
Okay.
I've got a book out. It came out yesterday. I've been running around doing stuff and media appearances, and I wanted to say hi and bring it to the attention of the audience. It's, I think we probably talked about it at some point. It's called Kakistocracy.
Okay.
You know what that word means, Steve?
That's when the idiots are running things. I don't know actually. What?
Yes, actually, that is no. That's you. You've got it. I think you figured it out from context clues.
Okay.
Kakik, worse, stocracy.
Yeah.
Rule
I
by-
saw
rule by-
populism at the top of your title thing, so I just assumed it was idiots. So.
Yeah. Why populism ends in disaster. So the book I would like to just recommend it to the audience. It's a I'm thinking about your stream and thinking about the things we talk about online, and I think a lot of the things you're doing like you're doing meta discourse in a way. You're doing day to day events like what's going on with Graham Plattner, what's going on with Trump election stuff. At the same time, like I think you have a concern, and the audience has a concern with like why do we believe things are true? Like what is the kind of informational environment we find ourselves in? Like, why do we trust some people and some institutions and some processes for determining truth, and we don't trust others?
Yeah.
And this book is basically about that, like at a very broad level. Okay. So I'm coming at it from somebody who was right wing, who is still right wing, who was just freaked out and just disturbed by the kinds of things right wing people believe or what the kind of the way they construct truth and what they think and how they think. Right. And so I have a political science background. This is not just about American politics. I have a lot of I go into data about like what it looks like when populists take power abroad. It's bad on every measure you can imagine. Bad for the economy. Bad in terms of like democracy. Bad in terms of freedom of speech, journalistic freedom. And it sucks. And there's like a lot of examples in the book, right? So you basically have populists in Hungary, you have populists that are rising in France, and you have a history of populism in Latin America where they've really things up.
Wait.
Argentina.
Hold on. It lagged for a second. Okay, sorry. You were saying populace in Hungary and then populace and then it lagged for a sec.
It's basically happening across much of the world. So
Sure,
Latin
yeah.
America is the region that has had the most populism. Basically, it's like kind of the example that everyone points to. It's got Argentina and Venezuela are the two worst performing economies in the world over the last 70 years, other than like Middle Eastern war zones, basically, and Middle Eastern and African war zones, places like Congo and Syria and Iraq. They're right up there on the list. So yeah, this is a book about like knowledge and what's happening in the world, and people should read it. That's my pitch.
Okay. Where do people find it at?
Anywhere you buy books, you can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, the publisher. It's going to be in the bookstores too, so anywhere.
Okay. Well, just saying, so I can link it in chat at least, so people know to so I have a thing to.
Amazon probably the best, the most convenient.
Gotcha. Okay, there you go. I'm kind of curious from your perspective as somebody who at one point, or maybe even still is, like decently connected to some like establishment conservative-esque figures. What, two questions. One, do they perceive the same issue that you do with there being like a human capital problem, as you've called it, or this like brain IQ drain? And then two, if they do, what do they attribute that to? Why do they think it's happened so much on the right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've seen, I've talked to some people who've been thinking about this. If you see, like Chris Rufo has been talking about this sometimes. He tweets about
Ugh.
it every once in a while. Him and Lomez on their podcast talk about this issue. As a general matter, yeah, there are smart people who see this. It's always kind of it's easy to downplay and it's easy to make a false equivalence to what's going on the left. So like whenever something happens on the left, like this stuff with what's going on in the primaries in New York and with Graham Plattner, like that's just it's like two steps forward, one step back because they realize something is wrong. But then when the left pops up with something, they will sit there, they'll say, oh, we have this whatever. There's two grand coalitions in this country, and the other side is worse. And look at all their crazy conspiracy theorists and lunatics they have on that side. I think that I've reached them to some degree. Like I don't think most smart conservatives like the fact that okay. There's a couple categories. Like the tech people. The tech people are the worst. Like
Yeah.
if you think like if you think you scoffed at like Chris Rufo and you scoff at like conservative activists, they are way more
Well, my
introspective.
issue is I think Chris Rufo is fucking a demon. I think he's an evil person. I think the tech bros are just so fucking retarded. It just drives me crazy. That's my issue with the two different groups of people. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, Chris, I like Chris. The tech bros, though, yeah, they're idiot. They're geniuses in a way. I mean, they must be because they've accomplished some things, great things in a lot of cases. But as
maybe.
far as
But
like politics, in that area of life, like I've been looking for the hint of like wisdom, flashes of the smarts that they must have taken to found these companies and become so wealthy and successful. And it's really hard to find. It's really hard to find. Some of them are intelligent when we sit here, we talk like this, like, you can tell there's IIQ, there's brain power there. But as far as like how they gain information, like how they know, like the meta questions of like which sources to trust and like what is good evidence for something and what is not, and like keeping things in perspective, just as bad as your proverbial boomer uncle sitting on Facebook.
I
It's
think there's a
really
couple.
bad.
I think there's a couple different things. One is I wish this was an archetype that was differentiated more because now I'm more careful to look up somebody's background. You had like this old class of tech bros where you have like your Mark Zuckerbergs and your Jeff Bezoses. Bezoses, whatever. Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, where these are people who like legitimately were good at the thing that they did initially, whether it was some kind of software development or whatever, and then also like legitimately built businesses. And then you have like this, and I hate to use this word because leftists fucking use, but like the VC class. All right. If I were to get like a business and I wanted advice for growing it, I would take like a Zuckerberg or a Bezos all day over 10 of these fucking loser retards who exist in San Francisco who happen to have decent exits from some fucking company and then invest in a million things and get a few more exits. I hate that class of people. I hate them more. If I was to ever join my brother Hassan in arms against the capital class and become a full-on commie, it would be because of those, like the weird VC exits. I hate all of VC culture. The most communist take I have is I think that all vertical and horizontal integration sales should be banned. No more buying companies, no more exiting. If you want to be the CEO of a business, then fucking run your business, but you can't just sell and then go make another one to sell it over and over again. That's an extreme take. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is that we have this thing in society where you have like STEM is like the real shit, and then everything else is like soft, mushy, fake shit. And sometimes people like make it far in like these worlds of like science or tech or software, and then they look at like politics and psychology and like, well, we made it in the hard science world. That like politics stuff, we could probably solve that, with like 3 questions to Grok or Claude, and we're good to go. And listening to these people talk about politics, I just want to kill myself because it's like the most naive, the worst examples of like this epistemic trespass you could ever find in your life. Where these Mark Andreessen types, they go out and they talk like they're 16-year-olds in high school who just got done with their first Ayn Rand book. Oh my god, it drives me crazy. But yeah, those are the 2 huge issues I guess I have with the software class, the tech bro people.
Yeah, I mean, Doge was the kind of worst kind of the worst kind of example of this because I hated watching this because there's people who think about the federal budget. They've written papers on like what you can cut and how how you can do it and like how you can make government work smarter. People on the right, people conservatives, you could have tapped. No, there was none of that. There was just like Elon Musk saying stuff that has no connection to reality to anybody, no matter what your politics, if you know anything about the federal government or the budget. So he'd say, we're going to save $1 trillion,
Yeah,
$2
and it's
trillion.
like when somebody gives, I mean, you know this. I'm sure somebody will give like a magnitude on a thing, and it's like, what do you even talk? Like a guy's like, oh, I just bought the sickest Mustang. It's got like 20,000 horsepower, and it's like, is this like a tractor? What are you talking about? Yeah, and his first claim was 2 trillion, which is like I think more than our entire discretionary budget. And I'm like, what do you? Oh my god, I hate these people.
Yeah. It's all going to be for waste, waste, fraud, and abuse. It's and like the stuff they went after is the stuff that I thought was most cost efficient, right? The scientific funding, which costs the least, which is like the smallest part of the federal budget. They save no money,
Yeah,
and they probably
do
cripple
long-term
America.
damage. Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I thought you were going to say when you were talking about Bezos and Zuckerberg, I thought you were going to say like there's a new class of like fakeness. That's like the crypto stuff. I think and the crypto and the prediction markets. I think has introduced just like a new level of fakeness, right? Because the crypto stuff, I knew one guy who was like, I succeeded at the toughest, the hardest game in the world. And like to even find what the social value is of like buying and selling crypto stuff is hard and like arguably has negative value because it's like good for criminals and money launderers. And so the crypto class, and when these people step into politics, it's like, yeah, they're in the Elon Musk kind of zone and how they think. And then the prediction markets thing, which they're not that obnoxious, but like a lot of them, like the Poly Market, Wall Street Journal had a big report. They're funding like the worst kind of right wing influencers. They're making fake videos. Like their thing, they're just transferring value. I've always been a fan of prediction markets. In theory, they can aggregate information, they can make us smarter, and they do have their uses. But like the people who made their money in that, they're using them as just way to separate idiots from their money, and it's kind of it's contributing to the kind of degradation of the political discourse. So yeah, the tech bros are like the worst. I mean, I think that this like thing, I would have thought, Ayn Rand, I read Ayn Rand. I admire Ayn Rand in some ways. If like 5, 10 years ago, I would have been like, there's just this thing called intelligence. There's this thing IQ. And like a guy who sits there on his computer and builds $1 billion company is probably just smarter than these Washington bureaucrats. And like he could just sit there in a day or a week or whatever and like think about all these policies and like how to fix the country.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like how the simple-minded Trump supporter thinks, oh, we just need a businessman who's gonna, go in and set us straight. And like I talk about this is the book. This is the entire process of like my disillusionment with that and like how that's not true is there. Like sometimes the midwits who know what they're talking about are better than the geniuses who don't know what they're talking about and don't care about truth and don't bother trying to learn. And sometimes the institution itself, like this process of democracy and like actually figuring things out and like having studies and like trusting them and seeing what this says about issues, like that's also very important.
Yeah, I think that I mean, I'm a big as a tested 275 IQ Mensa Supreme Warlord myself. I'm a big believer that IQ and intelligence are very important things, but I think that unfortunately there are just like toggles that happen, whether it's political partisanship or some other social thing, where it just like shuts the brain off for some people, where if you swap the subjects around in a statement, the person goes from sounding like a fucking moron to being like infinitely skeptical and quite wise with the things that they're saying. But something about the political realm, or as soon as like your emotions get involved, can super destroy a person's ability to navigate an environment. Given assuming I haven't dug in like super extensively, but given Elon's track record with businesses, my assumption would be that if somebody like held a gun to his head and was like, you're going to do Doge and you're going to do it right this time, that if he actually sat down and used his intelligence to figure out how to do it, that you would get something that could theoretically be better than maybe what the people have done there. But that would look like an actual auditing process of like, okay, well, what did all of the Office of Inspectors General say? What do the people that, are in these things and they complain about things? What are their blockers for getting jobs done? What are they, like, it would be that type of a thing. Not like I'm going to hire a bunch of 22-year-olds and then control F DEI and trans and cancel all of that and say that I won, But yeah, it's the arrogance and like the emotional thing that I think just it shuts people's brains down sometimes when it comes to evaluating, like things that are outside of their direct area of knowledge.
So, yeah, this reminds me of a story. And there's a book by my friend Brian Kaplan called The Myth of the Rational Voter. And he talks about the Soviet Union in the early days. And basically, they didn't like Darwinism. So they liked Lysenkoism. So basically, they like suppressed the Darwinian scientists. They tried to do farming based on like Lysenkoist principles, and it didn't work. The
Hmm.
farming sucked. Now
And that like
it
and
t-
to
became
go a step further, they didn't believe like in genes or any of that for the Lysenkoist stuff. Like the way that they tried to do breeding, the whole idea of genetics and everything, I believe, was not believed by them initially as a result of that Lysenko.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, life cycle is basically like exactly. So the environment actually shapes the person, which was
yeah.
somehow consistent with socialism or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and then it came to nuclear physics, and there was talk of rejecting Einstein's theory of relativity. And what happened was they found out that if they reject modern physics, they're not getting an atomic bomb. They're not going to have a nuclear program. And when it was the peasants starving, it was like okay. When it was their own survival and national power, they suddenly became rational and they followed mainstream Western physics, right?
Hmm.
And so this reminds me of this with Elon Musk. You're right. I think if you put a gun to his head, he can't possibly be this stupid. Like if he's as stupid as he looks on Twitter, like he wouldn't run companies. He'd like, he wouldn't be able to manage his affairs. Like there would be just this guy would be walking into walls. He's like really, really stupid.
Yeah.
The um and this reminds I just reviewed JD Vance's new book. And he's Yale Law School. Like you have to that's intelligent. I'm sorry. The LSAT is a basically an IQ test. Yale Law School is the best law school in the country. So he got in there. He's intelligent. Okay. Um but his intelligence he used it to basically become first of all a famous pundit who was anti-Trump and then became a Trump's successor, became Trump's vice presidential nominee, and now it looks like he might be president after Trump is gone, right? He'll at least probably be the nominee. And so, like, you look at that, and he's an intelligent person, and like some of the actual beliefs or some of the things he says, like at a level of like, is this thing true or false that he believes that he espouses? It's like, no, that's clearly false. But like from the perspective of like, is JD Vance acting intelligently to get what he wants, which is political power, which he seems to be in denial about from his book. I mean, it's fascinating how much he denies, like he has any kind of, he's just this aw shucks good old boy who was kind of accidentally found myself in this position. But I think that's obviously BS. And yeah, from that perspective, he's like a genius, right? He's went from nothing to be anti-Trump to pro-Trump to
Hmm.
Trump's successor. That's a remarkable accomplishment. So yeah, intelligence. This is why people are dumb with politics. Like it's very easy. It's like, what are you trying to accomplish? If it's not seeking a truth, if it's not, making the country better off, if it's just your own power, then you become a more effective, psychopath or demagogue.
Yeah, when I talk about this on stream, I call these like the tier one influencers and the tier two influencers, where you have people that are the tier ones are like your Tucker Carlsons, where they know that the Dominion story is bullshit. They know that 90% of what they say on TV is bullshit, but they have to like do their shilling for the Republican Party. But then you have these people that get picked up, your Joe Rogans, that I think they end up doing all the propaganda, but they're legitimate believers. I think they've been mind fucked by the algorithm. The scariest thing is I think Trump might be more of a tier two than a tier one guy. I can't tell sometimes where like he might actually just believe a lot of the crazy retarded shit that he sees more so than he's like intentionally trying to manufacture some lie. It's hard to tell sometimes. Um,
It's hard to draw those lines because I've known Tucker and like I know you're referring to with the Dominion stuff because it was in the lawsuit, right? So he comes out at the beginning when the Dominion stuff's going on. It's like this is all BS, this stolen election stuff. Then soon he's mad at some female reporter because she fact checked some Trump thing, and he's like, we need to fire her. And you're thinking, okay, one interpretation is like he knew it was all BS, but like decided this is what he needs to do. But from just like knowing this guy and watching this guy, I think it's like psychologically more complicated than that. I think that some of these people, and Trump is probably an easy case to see this, like truthhood and falsehood, like are not real. It's not a real distinction in their mind. What is true? What is true is what happens to feel right in the moment, and what happens to feel right is based on like instinct and prejudice and what serves their interests at the time. So Trump wants to believe, right, that he won the 2020 election. He wants to believe he has the biggest crowds. Like, does he really believe it? If you put a gun to his head, like that's an extreme case. I don't know even in that case, but like nobody has a gun to his head, right? So it's a theoretical thing, and he doesn't have to face that.
I do
And Tucker
agree. I was gonna say I do agree
Gets
that it's a little bit more complicated. I'm curious, real fast. Did you ever play any video games growing up, or like any online games?
Yeah, I play. I mean, I played. I think I was too old for. I had consoles, not a computer game. So I played like Mario and Mortal Kombat and stuff
Okay.
like that.
There's something that happens in politics when it comes to thinking about like the lies and the more complicated psychology that happen in games a lot. It's hard to understand this unless I think you've been there, maybe, or maybe it's not. But like when you play games, okay, when you play competitive games and you're ranked, sometimes you lose games and it's like, oh, this is that was bullshit. You're not always playing 100%, but you shouldn't have lost that game. And maybe there's even a game where you get beat by a guy who was like, he was obviously aimbotting. This guy was hacking. Okay, he was using a cheat program. So you download the cheat program, but you're only ever going to use it against people who are cheating against you, right? Now, sometimes you'll flip it on and maybe the guy wasn't cheating, but like it seems like he was or whatever. And then maybe there are days where you're like, I'm having an off day and I'm just going to I'm going to aimbot this day because I'm tired and I should be playing better anyway. And it comes to the point where you've made so many compromises where it's like, yeah, I'm hacking, I'm aimbotting, but like kind of everybody does it too. And I feel like for a lot of the people that are doing politics, that are in the heavy propaganda world, if you push them really hard, like you mentioned that, like the 2020 election or whatever else, maybe they would say, okay, fine, we're probably stretching the truth or maybe even outright lying in some of these circumstances, but no more than everybody else does because everybody more or less plays the exact same game. And I think that that's part of the cope that people make to where it's like, okay, maybe I'm kind of doing this stuff, but like I have to survive in this area because everybody else is doing the same thing. And as long as you can convince yourself of that, or the other people of that, then you end up in this weird campus world where as long as they're the opposition or whatever, we can do whatever we want to take them down because they're engaged in foul play. And if we have to foul play to get there, like JD Vance said with the Haitian dog story, then God damn it, we'll do it,
It's funny, talking to these people on social media, like the one time where I think I kind of got through to them was, yeah, you're right. They do this false equivalencies thing. And after Trump won in 2024, they were all convinced that Democrats would try to overturn the election. Like
Oh.
they had explained 2020 to themselves by saying everybody now in politics is going to say an election is stolen and is going to object and is going to try to change the results. And 2024, they go through the January 6th of 2025, and all the Democrats, they all accept the election results. And I go like, do you people question this now? You thought they were going to do this. Like, no, you do this. And they don't do this. They accept the results of the election. And, a few commenters, like, this never happens. Like, when I check the replies, are like, yeah, from the backup perspective, I was surprised. I thought they were gonna try to say the election was stolen. I thought they were gonna do something, and I was surprised. And I'm like, it had to be that clear, right? It had to be Democrats taking that much of a moral high ground. And so occasionally you do get through, but like the world, it's not. Usually the world doesn't give you examples that clear cut. Like one person wins an election, then the next party wins an election. It's
Yeah.
more like the world is like very, very messy, and you can always just like grab random stuff.
Yeah.
I say Trump says this, they could say like, look at this random left-wing activist says that, and like maybe those things are comparable. But what I say is Trump is the Republican Party. Trump is like, when they have primaries now, when somebody gets knocked off, it's not about any issue. Like the Democrats primary over Israel, the Tea Party used to primary over
Fiscal
like
responsibilities.
government spending.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like now all we have primaries over is literally Trump. Like if you love Trump enough, like it doesn't matter what your positions are. If Trump likes you or not, that determines like whether the Republican primary voter is going to go with you. And he wins almost all of these things, with a handful of exceptions. So yeah, this is bad. I mean, we could gripe about this stuff all day. There's a little bit of talk in the book about what like we can do about it, like what actually can be done. And so, like it's in there. It's in like the last two chapters, so people can look at that.
Wait,
I think that like
real quick,
we're good at diagnosing this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get to that, because I have one theory on this, and then we can go to anything in the book you want. The one theory that I have about Republicans for why this happens so much on their side, and it is starting to happen now on our DSA types far lefts, but not obviously it's nowhere near the majority of the party. I feel like because Democrats somehow became like the city slicker or coastal elite representatives, they were allowed to be like more educated or whatever, and Republicans end up broadly more representing the like kind of rural southern states, whatever. I feel like what happened was there was this game that Republicans played where you go on TV And you've got your coastal elites and your minority class and whatever, and then you got your Republicans who are your real rough and tumble, like, salt of the earth men. And then that was for TV. And then when the cameras were off and you go to Congress, everybody's from Yale. Okay, this guy was your fucking classmate. All right, Bush and all these guys, these are all Yale, Harvard grads, and they knew that. And they're like, yeah, we say shit on TV, but obviously, like everybody thought that Bush was a retard. If you go back and you listen to Bush talk about anything, he sounds like Einstein compared to Trump. It's not even close.
Right.
But I feel like what happened was Republicans played this game for so long. There's this quote that gets attributed, probably misattributed to Voltaire or whatever, where it's like, if you get your laughs by pretending to be an idiot, pretty soon you'll find yourself in good company. To where Republicans suddenly, you get like a guy like Trump running, and it's like, okay, hold on. This guy doesn't understand that we're just like playing retards on TV, but we're like doing real shit in the background, and Trump is like actually retarded. And then they're like, well, there's no way he's going to win the votes. But what they don't understand is the mask that they presented to all of their voters was so compelling and so convincing for so long that they're probably like, oh, fucking yeah, let's fucking vote for Trump. And then all of the establishment class for the Republican Party realized that, like, I feel like that game had ended for them and they had played with fire too long for it because the voting base really couldn't distinguish, like a Bush from a Trump or a guy who's pretending to be retarded but was a Yale, Harvard, whatever grad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And in the book, there's a lot of like, they go into the history of this. So it started with talk radio. These are outsiders. These are people just with the radio. They're just reaching the voter directly. Fox News is like a big, kind of a big watershed here. And then Fox News starts transforming the Republican Party into a more culturally concerned party, concerned with cultural issues and this demagoguery. And there's a really great book that I've reviewed before. There was a Showtime series based on it with Russell Crowe and Seth MacFarlane called The Loudest Voice or The Loudest Voice in the Room. It's a biography of Roger Ailes by Gabriel Sherman, and then the Showtime documentary, not documentary, it's a drama that people can watch based on the book. And it's fascinating. The 2012 election, right? This is before Trump. This is when Trump is talking about Obama's birth certificate and doing well in the Republican polls, but he's not actually running for president. And Roger Ailes at Fox basically hires every single candidate who's going to be in the running in 2012. So like Huckabee and Santorum, not Romney, but like Gingrich, and he's thinking he's in control of this because he's putting on a great show, right? And so like they're putting these people out of that. In the end, they settle on Mitt Romney. They settle on a normal Republican politician, and Trump comes along in 2016, and it's like he's not in because Fox News is still somewhat ideological. They're still somewhat establishment. They don't like Trump. They like somebody like Marco Rubio
or
right?
Ted Cruz. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And they just get overwhelmed. Like Trump doesn't even go to. He hates Fox so much he like doesn't even go to some of the debates, and he just does his own thing. And then they have the debates without him on Fox, and he takes over. They eventually make peace. Now, I mean, you go to Fox, it's like North Korea. It's like a complete cult of personality, but. Yeah, they primed them for this. They made like Trump's predecessor is not George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush or Ronald Reagan. It's Rush Limbaugh. It's like Sean Hannity, right? It's these these large media figures who had a direct connection to the audience and basically are just very, very good on camera. He was just more entertaining and better than any of those people. So yeah, this is like there's a lot going on here. There's education polarization, like. Republicans became less educated party. Democrats became the more educated party. Less educated people watch TV much more than they read. So there's some cool graphs in the book about that. And so, yeah, it turns into like a different communication style, different relationship to truth, right? A lot of things the Republican voters believe. It's like, you can only believe them if you don't really follow the news. Like the idea that, there's some kind of equivalency in Trump's corruption versus that of previous Democratic administrations. It's just, you can't believe that as a rational person if you actually pay attention to news. If you're a casual viewer, if you turn on the TV, if you turn on Fox once in a while, that's all you see, and you're Hunter Biden stuff and you don't hear the Trump stuff, then okay, that's plausible. But it's a terrible thing. It's happening worldwide. I mean, this is social media. This is the demon that has been unleashed. With the me and you are kind of we're products of the new media, but most of the new media is like trash podcasts. Like the big stuff tends to be trash podcasts, like influencers that have a terrible relationship with truth, no matter how bad, how many mistakes the media makes, or how much like you could think that the scientific and academic institutions are corrupt. It's not like this. It's not like any idiot can get in front of a camera, say literally anything, and have millions of people believe it without any filtering at all. And so, yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, there's like a weird thing about like influence and the fact that people started, especially with podcasts, like the more popular you are, the more you are the thing that you say you are. So for instance, like I have a YouTube channel that I do decently well. Like if I wanted to record a piano album, okay, I can barely play piano, but if I wanted to record a piano album and sell it, I would outsell like 99.9% of everybody that's ever posted on SoundCloud or SoundCloud or YouTube or anything else. But just because I have like a big YouTube channel, right? Now I could call myself a musician and say that like I'm a professional musician because I've sold thousands of dollars worth or tens of thousands or whatever versus everybody else who's more talented than me and sold less. But it's like it's not really. I'm just like a YouTuber, and then I did like a music project, but that's not like really why I'm popular, and it's not really like what my profession is. And I feel like for podcasts it's kind of similar, where it's like, well, as long as you have a lot of viewership doing a thing, and then because journalist isn't like a protected title, basically now whatever you talk about, you kind of get to claim some weird expertise like thing in that thing, and nobody really questions it, especially because of how the social media thing operates today, where you are inundated with the same message over and over and over again that's being pushed on all these podcasts. And then like there are so many things that people say that are like truisms now that are just so not true, like, well, we shouldn't gatekeep media from anybody, we shouldn't gatekeep journalism. And it's like, well, really, should we really not? Do you really feel that way about like anything else in your life? Would you go to any random person who says they're a doctor if you're trying to get treatment for some people would now, but like you wouldn't take your car to like a baker, you'd take it to an auto mechanic or whatever. But like it's just this weird world where the social media stuff and then like the big viewership podcast and everybody just all repeat the same dumb shit, and a lot of it can't ever be tracked really anyway. Like if Joe Rogan or somebody tells you there's 50 million illegal immigrants versus like 2 million that came in, it's not like right? You don't like there's no way to actually verify that or what's going on in Iran or anything else. So yeah.
Yeah, Rogan is like, yeah, a good example of that, right? Because he gets famous for being a comedian and being like some UFC guy, right? Some UFC commenter, right? And now he's a huge guy, and now he speaks about politics, and he's got a bigger voice than, 99.9% of people out there. Some of them are like Tucker Carlson, who's actually main thing is politics, and like that's kind of the more frightening thing, because celebrities is one thing, but like people who actually specialize in politics and are that crazy is actually, worse. I think kind of the Rogan viewer is maybe, it bounces off of them, while the Tucker viewer is actually, I think, influential within Republican politics. Yeah, when you said like gatekeeping, like, do you like? I have ideas on this, but like, what do you think like should be done? Like, so in Europe, for example, they're hard on social media moderation. Like, you cannot just go be a Nazi.
I don't care.
Online.
I've said this a million times. I'm pro hate speech. I don't care about hate speech. I care about people that intentionally tell lies. I think it's destroying our planet. If you want to go out and say the N word and be a Nazi or whatever, fuck it, whatever. But as soon as you start like lying about, Doge, or that Trump has made all these great trade deals, or that like immigrants are a drain on every economy on the planet, or what, like we're so out of the world of factuality. The biggest issue that I have is that when you look at certain virtues that humans have, I think in a way, it depends on what your normative approach is or whatever, but like I really truly do believe that virtues all kind of cash out consequentially. So like people don't like to see people suffer. It's a virtue to be nice to people. It's virtuous to help people who are suffering. But there's a reason why. We really do have a bad intuitive feeling. We don't want to see somebody hurt. We don't want to see somebody suffering, generally speaking, like or at least for an unjustified purpose, right? So like there's like a connection between the virtues we have and then the outcomes I think that they produce, I would argue, generally speaking. But the issue is that when people look at things like freedom of speech or like the discourse, they talk about these virtues, but these virtues are only good insofar as they're producing a good environment that is like facilitating, the marketplace of ideas, or a lot of people being able to discuss a thing. So like if you look at like COVID lockdowns, for example, I think that banning all conversations about whether lockdowns are good or bad, I would say that's bad. I think there's a lot of rich material there that we can discuss, even prospectively. At the time, were there better options that we could have chosen to do better with our lockdown approach? But because so many people, that whole topic is inundated with garbage speech, we don't even have the conversation. So in a weird way, like we get beat over the head with these people who are just liars or don't give a fuck about what's true at all. And then they talk about this like First Amendment, we need to have the freedom of speech to say anything. And it's like, this has created an environment where, in my opinion, there's almost no good speech happening. So like, what are we getting for it? I don't think there's a virtue there for the free speech thing. If we're not actually having a marketplace of ideas anymore, it's just like, which liar do you want to subscribe to? And then have their shit, fill your media feed.
Yeah, I like that. That's right. There was a story of David Icke's. David Icke's. He's a guy he's like an old school conspiracy theorist, like before the internet era. I think he's still alive and he's still on Twitter, but he's not. He's not a big on Twitter. He was like an old school conspiracy theorist who
Hmm.
thought the world was run by lizard people, literally lizard people. And he was trying to get an entry to some country. It was either Canada or UK or something like that. And they thought lizard might be a euphemism for Jews,
Okay.
right? And so they tried to like question him, at the border or whatever they do. They're like, and they find out he actually believes they're literal lizards. And so he wasn't engaging in hate speech. Therefore, like he was allowed into the country. So it's like this is the opposite thing. It's like the
Yeah.
bad thing is like hating Jews, but being absolutely insane is fine. I think you're right. I think that the conspiracy, like I think Europe does it the opposite way. I think, yeah, if you're racist or sexist, I think if you're a conspiracy theorist, it's less it's not as easy because you can sue people a lot easier and stuff like that. But yeah, basically conspiracy theorists are given a lot more leeway.
Hmm.
And you're right. And I think the conspiracy, like most people are not like hateful monsters. Like they might have prejudices, but they want to believe that they're doing the right thing and they're not harming people. Like what conservatives I see when they talk about like human trafficking at the border, right? Or when they talk about like sex trafficking.
Sure.
And I think what's going on is they don't like immigration. They can't just say we want to keep these people out, and so they have to make them into victims, even though that happens probably to some extent. But the fact that they think this is like the dominant thing going on at the border, right, is a convenient way for them to feel like they're good people and also continue to be opposed to immigration or not having a welcoming immigration policy. And so, I would suggest going to war with this stuff. My experience is like people like can have bad political views and then reform. Like I've rarely seen like a conspiracy theorist become a sane, rational contributor to like the political discourse. Maybe it's happened before, but that's something that I've seen very, very rarely. I
Hmm.
just think it's like it's probably an intelligence issue, honestly. Like it's actually hard to understand the world, and maybe some people can do no better than imagining there's like a direct connection. Something happens because somebody wanted that way, a direct connection between intentions and outcomes. And so, yeah, I think like going after the conspiracy theorists is best. I'm like, I'm open to more. Like, I think the old social media um, curation. I don't know about government doing it. It's very hard, but it's a hard issue. But like curation from like private companies, I think was good. I think Twitter was much better, even though it hurt me personally. I think Twitter was better
They got like
before.
7 banned accounts. Yeah.
Yeah, I got banned like 3 times for like bullshit. So it sucks. Like nobody can doubt like the old system sucked and like libs have been censorious in ways that they shouldn't have been. But yeah, we need to find some kind of balance where it's like between Blue Sky and Elon Musk's X, there needs to be something. I don't think it's impossible to find that middle ground. It's just in practice we haven't.
Americans can't have a conversation about speech. We're not ready yet. Like for Americans, like that, like for all freedom of speech and no censorship for anybody is just like it's so heavily ingrained, like carved into people's brains that it just becomes thought terminating so immediately. Even though you can find like obvious counterexamples, like how do you feel about child pornography? Okay, well I guess that should be blanket ban by the government. What about like spam? Do you think that spam mail or spam messages should be protected? Okay, well maybe not that. And it's like, but I like when it comes to there's something about the First Amendment thing that just shuts people's brains down and they just can't have any conversation about any kind of limitation at all. But it does worry me that I think that the United States has just ran well for so long that people think that nothing matters because of all the systems that are kind of like working under the hood. Like you can live without a gallbladder, you can live with just one kidney. I'm sure if you removed your liver, I don't know, the clotting factors, probably not that. But like you can take things away and like be okay for a little bit, but eventually it's going to catch up with you. And the issue is that by the time everything catches up with you, like it's going to be fucked, Like watching, like there are just so many insane things that the U.S. has such a head start on the rest of the world. It doesn't matter. But like the government shutting down, was it Anthropic's new model or was it, I don't know who the fuck it was. They were
It was
going to,
Anthropic.
yeah, like that's crazy. But like we're so far ahead of basically every other country in terms of like private models for AI that we're okay. But like if we were in a more competitive environment where these other European countries were kind of like caught up to us, like a couple times doing shit like that, I think you would just lose a fuck ton of business and industry in your country, and it would be really hard to come back from stuff like that. But we're
Yeah,
so yeah
I
we're
mean,
yeah
it kind of, I mean, It's interesting. I mean, like, the stock market until recently was doing pretty well, even under Trump. Scott Sumner points out that basically, like, Congress has always been serious under Trump about judges and like Federal Reserve members of the Federal Reserve Board, and like he hasn't been appointing like Cash Patel. So it's interesting, like the kind of the DOJ, the FBI, the Department of Defense can have these like cartoon characters there, like all Trump's advisors, right? But there's still like a few things that kind of do run on autopilot. And Trump, if he could be president for 20 years, he'd get to it all because there's nothing sacred with that man, and like his control of the Republican Party is so dominant. But thankfully, we're in year six of like 8 years or something like that of Trump, and he's going to be a lame duck pretty soon and probably not do well in these elections.
Yeah.
And so
I would say what
yeah,
you're saying
maybe
was true for term one. For term two, though, I think he got a better understanding of like, because I think Trump didn't know how government worked in term one, and then in
no,
term
he
two,
did. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The question is like,
we
but
wouldn't
it's
see
still
like that.
times-
The SPLC indictment, shit, like the Comey indictment, that would not be happening under Bill Barr. He would tell Trump to kick rocks and fuck off. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean, he did on the election stuff, right? And
Yeah.
that's what brought down Bill Barr, right? It gets worse and worse. He figures out like loyalty is the only thing that matters. He surrounds himself with these toadies. Judges, it's funny because like he's so mad at the Supreme Court, but he's stuck with the ones he appointed, right? And he's gotta and the Senate is there, and the Senate like actually takes judges seriously and takes members of the Federal Reserve seriously, and so like yeah, give Trump like Ken Paxton is probably going to go into the Senate, right? Like he's replacing the politicians over time. It started out with like 1% of Congress is MAGA, and now after 6 years, of Trump presidency and 10 years of Trump being a major, the dominant figure in the Republican Party, now it's I don't know 20%, right? Maybe
Yeah.
30% of the House and like 20% of the Senate or something like that. I mean, if Republicans,
I will
are,
say
like,
it's kind of.
truly-
I think it's kind of funny. I always used to argue this in the past. People would always talk about like military-industrial complex, and there's so much pressure on our politicians to do shit and whatever. And I'd always point out that like if anybody was truly going to use some kind of like underhanded mean to control how politicians vote or whatever, if you want to believe in this take, and maybe there might be some truth to it, like the market cap of Apple is like half our entire military industrial complex, all of these companies, like the revenues alone from, and that's just like one massive social media company. It is kind of funny that Trump can just fuck up the whole world when it comes to military related stuff. We're seeing in Iran how fucking horrible that is. But then even when it comes to the Supreme Court making a ruling on whether or not Trump can fire or hire people at will, and then what's he going to do with the Federal Reserve, the whole system is like, okay, no, you're not fucking with the Federal Reserve, because everybody knows that's like you're not going near it. I don't care what we have to write in our bullshit Supreme Court thing. I don't give a fuck what the Senate or whoever else to say. You're not touching the Federal Reserve. That's like the actual big boy institution that if you fuck with it, the whole country is done so,
Yeah, and so it's a case for optimism, right? We have like 2 more years of this freaking lunatic, right? Who's going to be a lame duck? Who's who knows? They might hold on to Congress and the Senate now with all the gerrymandering and Graham-Platter stuff. So they might hold on to it, but still, 2 years, that we can survive it. But yeah, I'm worried about Vance. Like if Vance is a successor, if somehow Vance becomes a nominee, Vance probably becomes a nominee. If Vance becomes president, like you can imagine a smarter, more focused, less like classically corrupt, but actually like ideological and like a real believer in like post-liberalism coming to power. He's going to be surrounded by people who are like the MAGAs are like 105 IQs, and Vance is going to have like the 115 IQs who actually like believe in shutting down immigration and shutting down trade and like think that's the way to make the country better. So yeah, despite like I think Vance is like actually the continuation of Trump in that how much of a break he is in terms of like norms and like how much of an outsider and how much of a hostility he has to like mainstream American institutions and like basically what America's become over the last couple decades. So yeah, I mean like we got to get through Trump and then it's got to not be Vance. People think somebody told me the day I might jump on the Vance train. Never Vance. Maybe some other person, but no Vance. He's the worst.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a believer Vance is in like this post-liberal stuff. It's hard to say because beforehand, before coming in, it seems like he wasn't at all. It seems like he was kind of a bog standardish new Republican conservative. I don't know if I would say like neocon. He didn't seem like.
What year are you talking about? When was he in like a neocon or a standard
Well, I'm thinking of
conservative?
like the interviews that he gave about like his hillbilly elegy book and everything. Like,
Well, no, he was anti-Trump back. He was that
yeah,
was completely different. Like,
yeah,
in the next few years, he became like a real believer in post-liberal. He was hanging out with these like obscure populist types like Patrick Deneen and like American Reformer and like these Claremont people.
sure.
And check out his book or check out my review of his book, which is posted on the Substack today. He he like goes out of his way to say he doesn't like markets and he thinks that like the international order has like failed like it's like kind of like it's not, I won't say it's smart, but it's like kind of wonky aimed at like this kind of midwit right winger who's really believes in this populist nonsense.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I mean, I think
He's
Vance.
like ideologically motivated is what I mean. Like Trump is for all of like I think you're gonna say like the effects of Trump are kind of like fascism or whatever else. I don't think I would ever even ascribe a political ideology to Trump because I just don't think he has the depth of character or knowledge or intelligence to even have an ideology. He's just like a narcissist who's the president. Whereas somebody like Vance or whatever does seem I don't know where his ideology is. I mean, you probably know more than I do, but he does seem to be more ideologically possessed. Yeah, and definitely
Yeah, he
smarter
has
for
an
politics.
he's an entire chapter in his last book about how economics is bad and how economics is fake. And it's like, he doesn't cite any economists. It's just basically he went to Japan and they had great strawberries and it was clean. And but economists tell us that Japan has had a economic stagnation. Maybe economics is fake. And economics doesn't wants to maximize GDP, but what good is GDP if like you're dying of fentanyl? It's just the it's just the
Yeah.
dumbest like critiques. But yeah, I mean, you can recognize. I'm telling you, the people like the right wing people on Twitter are like the biggest like quote unquote intellectual Trump supporters. Like the types of like the Federalist, not Federalist Society, but like the Federalist website of just like idiot conspiracy theorists. Like they love Vance because they see someone in him who thinks like they do. They can see the exact same thought process. Like when he's like, "Oh, the media is saying this," and then you won't necessarily even defend the thing that the media is attacking. You'll say they say this, but do you remember this and like the same media that tells us this is it's like he has this style. He has this way his brain has been shaped
Uh-huh.
by kind of the right wing ecosystem. That is, that's bad. That's made him a true believer. I think ultimately like his kind of the master code of Vance is ambition, right? He was an anti-Trump person. He was comparing Trump to Hitler when it looked like Trump was going to lose and all the establishment was anti-Trump. And he wrote Hillbilly Elegy, basically being against demagoguery and saying these, white hillbillies were blaming China and Obama for their problems. Just amazing, like the
The
degree to which
transformation.
the transformation can very convenient. It's like he warns about these politicians, which he becomes exactly like, 5, 6 years later.
It's always
So
hard for me to reconcile what's happening there. This is like I wish you could like just like extract a brain and ask it questions with no bullshit, or maybe they just have to get really drunk and you ask them. Cenk Uygur or whatever, right? If
I know of
you
him. Yeah.
if you go back and you read stuff that he was writing for like I think it was it was either his college like newspaper thing or it was like some early column that he was writing or whatever. Like sometimes the depth of knowledge there is fairly surprising. I'm like, what the fuck happened? Or a super
Smart.
fat
I didn't know.
what?
Yeah. I didn't know he was actually
No,
smart. That's
yeah.
interesting.
A really fascinating example is Tim Pool. If you go, he still has a Reddit account. You can go in his Reddit account and you can go 14 or 12 or 13 years ago. He was at Euromaidan. He was in Ukraine. People were asking him questions. He knew everything that was going on. It's like, yeah, Russia really wants them to join the markets, and the people feel like they're getting backstabbed by Yanukovych. And people even ask him questions. It's like, does this seem real, or are there like people on the ground fomenting this? He's like, no, there's 100,000 people protesting. Like the population is genuinely mad. He knows all of this, and then it collapses into like just the most one-dimensional take of things. 10 years later, and I'm always so interested in people like this because it's like, if you were retarded at one point, you were always retarded. I get it, but like, damn, what happened in your life journey? Is it
Yeah.
all fake and bullshit, or I don't know.
Well, it's back to the Tucker thing because you remember there was like like 15 years ago he went in front of some conservative audience and said we need to have like our own New York Times. Like conservative media sucks.
Mhm.
Like we need to be people who actually care about getting the facts right.
Yeah,
And so he started out as a journalist. He used to write serious columns, and Yeah, I mean, what happens? Like, if you're Tim Pool, if you're Cenk Uygur, or however you say his name, if you're Tucker Carlson, you're on top of the world. You are famous, you are influential, you are rich. If Tim Pool stayed informed, like, where would Tim Pool be? Maybe some columnist at some, Newsweek or something like that. Like, where, he'd be informed, he'd know more, he wouldn't be an idiot. But he'd be, 1/100th as rich and influential as he is now. So this is the incentive thing. I mean, why doesn't everyone who's like, I think there's a lot of people who could like probably do what Tim Pool does. Like a lot of people just like regular journalists who say work for the New York Times or something could become a Tim Pool and just like be like, I was once at the New York Times. Now I believe vaccines cause AIDS, right? Or whatever. And like that would take off. Like that's not that hard to do. Most people don't do that because most people who aren't retarded, who are, smart and go into the media or go into something that's, has a pretension of seeking truth, they care about facts and they care about how smarter people perceive them. A few of them like get enamored by this idea of the audience capture, the money, the power,
Hmm.
and those are just bad people. I mean, they're just shitty human beings. Like Tucker could have been a smart journalist, like a smart, contributor to the discourse. Tim Pool, you tell me, I haven't experienced it, but Tim Pool could have been the same. And they did the thing that gave them money and power and made the world a worse place. I mean, we should condemn those people more than anyone else.
Yeah, but it seems like there's a reward for it, I think, which is the hardest thing. I think it sucks because people don't recognize that there has to be some kind of like civilization and society requires like a rule set that we kind of all agree to follow. Otherwise, when people start trading in on that rule set, you can make very big short-term gains for individuals, but eventually the whole system will collapse. Like I could go win every single UFC fight if you let me bring, my Glock with me, but eventually other people are going to start bringing weapons and then we're all going to be killing each other and then UFC is gone, right? Like it doesn't work that way. And it feels like right now in media, it's kind of gotten to that point where like if I had a room full of journalists and I'm like, everybody write down your 5 most important opinions. Now I'm going to tell you that you can 100x your readership if you're willing to become a demagogue 180 on like 4 out of 5 of those positions. How many of you would accept it? Like in a room full of 100 journalists, if 10 raise their hands, even though most journalists are good, those 10 people have now 100x their viewership, and that just becomes the field. And what do
Yeah.
you do at that point when, like, imagine you are a New York Times or a Washington Post reporter, where if you fuck up certain facts, your head rolls, and then you're getting compared to Alex Jones, who Joe Rogan is saying, he was right on a lot of things, and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's optimistic that like, 9 out of 10 journalists don't do that, right? It's the kind of temptation is so there. Um, yeah, I mean, look, like if the incentives are there, some people are going to take the incentives, right? Some people are going to be tempted and they're going to go in that direction, right?
Hmm.
And so the question is like, what do we do about this, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of these kind of solutions are like technocratic in nature. Like, I've kind of come around to the ranked choice voting thing. Like, I think that's something that's, probably Graham Plattner now in the prediction markets is only 3%. And I was thinking before, if he stays in, he's got maybe a 30% chance. But then I was thinking, uh, they have ranked choice voting in Maine. I forgot about that. And so he's probably screwed. And that's probably why the prediction markets are only giving him 3%. And so, yeah, like there are like things you can do. Like, I think that just like anything that, AI, like I'm a big fan of AI. I actually think AI like is good on these measures because there's some good papers about how AI is really good at talking to conspiracy theorists. Because when you talk to conspiracy theorists, like they will know 5, 10 different studies. They'll know more about a topic than you.
Hmm.
And you have to go read their studies and see if they exist and like see how they represent it. You can't do that. So like they just know they'll overwhelm you and they'll think they're right. They've given AIs to these people, and like there's been looking at kind of what's happening on Grok on Twitter, where like the people who are on the right politically are using Grok more than anyone else, and they're fact checking their own side like a lot. And Grok, even though it's not as good as Claude or ChatGPT, is better than most, right wing or populist or sources of information. And so, like, technology maybe led us in this bad direction. Maybe technology can lead us in a good direction. So, like,
Yeah,
that's
maybe.
another reason to be bullish on AI. So, like, yeah, I mean, I think that it's fun to talk about how much Tucker sucks and how much Tim Pool sucks. They do suck, unquestionably. But yeah, we want to create a world where like those people can't get ahead, and that's what we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. I guess we'll see how it turns out once the midterms come around and then what it looks like after that. But Yeah.
Where are you in Plattner? You're very anti Plattner. Kind of where you at?
I don't like. I'm a huge anti-Slopulus guy, so I just don't like him for that reason. But I mean, I'll take almost any blue person over a Republican. I'd probably still take him over. I would still take him over the
What do
Republican
you think
there.
about the allegations, though? You think that's like something that's disqualifying, or do you think that's kind of a BS how they're springing this on him?
When you say disqualifying, are you asking me disqualifying as in I think it hurts him enough in the general that he should be passed over, or as in like the character flaw
Yeah,
is so deficient that he should never hold office?
either one. I mean, do you think that's something that like? Do you think that he should drop out based on this? Like, let's say if it wasn't a electability thing, like, is this actually like believable enough and a big enough character flaw, the recent allegations, to change your opinion on whether he should be in office?
I would have to think a lot about that. I'm not sure. That's a hard one. Um, I would have to think a lot about that. Yeah, I would have to think a lot about
Okay.
that. Fuck, it's a really hard. It's really difficult because it's like, because the question is like, opposed to a Republican, I'm almost always going to say yes. But like, let's say that we oppose them. Let's say it's not a Trump world and it's just an ordinary. We'll go back to a neocon that we have like policy disagreements on, but they're not like amoral demons that are trying to destroy the Western world. Um, I don't really factor character in much when it comes to political stuff. I guess. I mean, if he was like an unrepentant, like serial rapist, I think this would be really bad. I do think that given the woman's allegations of everything that she says is true, I think that's really bad. I don't know if, I don't know. I would have to, man, I'm not sure. I honestly, I just haven't thought about it that much. I feel like for politicians, usually these people they go through the ringer so much and they're so field tested that it's not that common that like a crazy allegation comes out. So we don't really have to think about it that much. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess whatever. Yeah.
I think that yeah, I think it's a totality of circumstances with Plattner. If this was just one accusation or like two,
Hmm.
um, I hate this thing that as a general matter, like you can have a relationship with a woman, and she can go public 3 or 5 years later and say something happened without any
Yeah, tell me about
corroborating.
it. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a fucking coming to the end of $1 million lawsuit. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like there's nothing corroborating in the woman with the rape allegation from the time. There's a couple years later, she talked to a therapist and she sent some text messages literally 2 years later, right? And that can't be the rule. But it's this guy who's like, married and like 1 month later sending all these messages and like, has several women saying he mistreated them and like, with the shit posting. In totality, yeah, I think he clearly has a character problem. At the same time, like if this brings him down, this like kind of Me Too stuff, like I really, really dislike this. It's like fine as like a straw that broke a camel's back, but you can, I remember the Kavanaugh thing. I think that was a tragedy. I wonder if you agree with that because this is a woman who couldn't even prove she had ever been in the room with Brett
Kavanaugh
Kavanaugh.
was that whole thing happened before I was on Vyvanse, so I would have to go back and research now with my ability to read more long form stuff to give you a more informed opinion.
Oh, you couldn't read? That's interesting. You couldn't
Well,
read
I
long
just
form stuff.
it was just I'm much better now over the past 2 or 3 years. But
Well, there was no like this woman could not prove they were in the same room. Like never. Like we didn't. He says he doesn't remember anything. She says he pinned her down. Not that he even raped her, but like he pinned her down, and I think
sure,
he
I
got up or
understand. Well,
something.
I mean, I have your opinion of it. Given your set of facts, I don't think you're a crazy person,
Okay,
so I would
well,
obviously
those are
agree.
facts.
Yeah.
Look it up. Look it up.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
not gonna.
I'm just
You're
gonna say if you believe a certain thing and you give me your set of facts, I imagine I'm probably gonna agree with you because I don't think you're irrational, right? So, yeah, I do agree. There's like an issue there. Obviously, I thought about it. Obviously, coming to the end of this lawsuit, like if some woman who I knew 5 years ago was just like, oh, by the way, this guy raped me. It's like, okay, well, fuck me, I guess. What do we do now? So I think you have to consider it from the character's perspective. You also have to consider it from the political opposition perspective. Like if he does have these skeletons in his closet, what do you do if like the Republicans want to bring this weapon out? And now you have to contend with that. I also think this is a deeper question that goes much further. That society, I think all our conversations about sex, I feel like we peaked. Maybe this is just my white man perspective. I feel like we peaked on a lot of social awareness and conversations, and like in like maybe the mid 2000s. I don't know, coincidentally when I was in high school, so maybe that's just my brain. And then like I think like the super woke stuff happened, which got a little bit retarded, and then the response to that got mega retarded. And then now we've got black lady Harvard Congress saying we call those birthing people, not women, that's transphobic. And it's just everything just got so stupid. And then conservatives are on whatever, I don't even know where the fuck they're at. So all that being said, like I do think there's an interesting question is like, let's assume that a person did like rape somebody 5 or 10 years ago. Like, is there any coming back from that, or is there like certain stuff that this guy is just locked out of forever? knowing that we had presidents that were slaveholders, knowing that, right? I don't know what the answer to that question is. It's very difficult. But also, there's also this counter thing, and obviously I've had to consider this a lot now, especially as I've become more and more public, where it's like, if I was giving advice to a public figure in the background, if a new upcoming person was, asking me, I had a conflict with this girl, like, do you think I should apologize? Like, my advice would always be, no, don't fucking say anything. If you want, you can sign something or get a lawyer, an NDA, maybe, but why the fuck would you ever apologize or acknowledge any wrongdoing ever when that's just going to be used against you in the future, right? Like, for this woman, let's assume that everything happened as she said. Let's say that Plattner did reply to her and he was like, listen, my behavior last night was totally fucking unacceptable. I got hammered. I shouldn't have forced myself on you. Like, I'm sorry. Like, from the bottom of my heart, like, I fucked up. Like, that would just be that much worse now if they had that text message. So, what do you even do,
If Graham Plattner was your son and you were giving him advice, actually what I would tell him is, don't put it in apologize, because you don't want to piss her off, right? Because if he stayed nice to her and she left him and they had like a great another year of relationship after, like maybe she doesn't come forward, right? Maybe she's not bitter. So apologize, but not in writing, right? Do not text it.
I think you
gotta go over. You gotta take her out to dinner and then have a conversation with her and make her happy.
Maybe, yeah. We have a huge issue with like how to deal with women and sex related stuff in society. Like if you're on the left, the women are treated, in my opinion, it's way too elevated sometimes. But then if you're on the right, you can literally rape and traffic women and nobody gives a fuck. So it's like we have no. I mean, like who was the guy? He finally had to drop out in Texas 23 or whatever when his staffer person like set herself on fire. Yeah, because it was just so much like she had to self-immolate.
He had like flirtatious texts with her. I think he might have had an affair with her. I'm not sure. She set herself on fire, which is like, I mean, that's not. I don't think that's his fault.
Maybe not. But I'm just saying that like it had to be that extreme. But I'm saying like we have a really hard time in society where we cannot reasonably deal with any type of sexual allegation related stuff, because depending on what side you're on, it gets so much weight one way or another. And yeah, that's very frustrating and very annoying. But no.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bigger question here of like what are we doing? Like, is every man who sleeps with a lot of women, is he like leaving in his path like a lot of damaged women? Like, how kind of healthy has this thing been where like, casual sex is accepted? I don't know. I'm not like, I know there's right-wing people who think like this is the ultimate issue. I go back and forth. I don't have a completely strong opinion on this, but like, I kind of think that that's what we might be watching. Any guy who was a Chad who slept with, I don't know, more than 10 or 15 women in his life, like might have like 3 who just hate his guts. Sure. Like that strikes me as completely plausible.
Yeah, and I think the big issue is that, like I've joked about this before, that if you have to take a sexual path through life as a woman, I think that you're better off starting as like a very conservative person, and your attachment to sex is unhealthy, and you have to learn to open up later, because I think you learn more of kind of like the emotional and physical guarding things, and then you can open up down the line. Whereas if you start on the liberal train, like I'm sorry, but like the super woke people are sometimes just fucking retarded on shit, where it's like it's way too blasé and way too open and way too stupid. Like these are people who will say like a 20-year-old dating like a 40-year-old is rape. And it's like, okay, but what if it was just a 20-year-old with OnlyFans who was selling material to a 40-year-old? It's like, oh, no, that's totally fine. That's sexual liberation. I was like, well, what the fuck? What are we doing here? Like, it's so stupid. And then those people,
or even younger, like they say like, okay, a 14-year-old with a 20-year-old, like he should go to jail. She can't handle that mentally. But like a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, like if the 14-year-old cannot consent to sex, right? If she's not mentally ready, like why with like another young person? Like, oh, there's another thing, there's a power thing or whatever, or the 20-year-old's smarter and can manipulate her or whatever, like whatever the question is. But like no, is it a problem or not? Like, can a 14-year-old actually make that decision? And we don't have like a consistent understanding of these things. It's interesting. You're more socially conservative than you're like a right-wing guy, kind of, right? You're like pro-market. You're kind of socially conservative.
I grew up as a very libertarian. Well, I'm not socially conservative. I'm a massive fucking whore, and I'm paying the price for it right now. So, but
what is a master? A master?
I said I'm a master whore. I'm a huge whore. So I'm very socially liberal. But it's I'm like here, like this is the person that I am. There's like this is how I would summarize my approach towards life. Okay, sometimes people will say things like people don't like me because I tell it like it is. People just don't like me because I'm blunt, okay? This person is retarded. The problem is that people don't like you because you're an asshole sometimes. If somebody can say, there are a lot of people that don't like me, it's because I can be pretty blunt and I'm kind of a jerk, like I'm an asshole the way I speak or whatever. This is a person who like engages in a type of behavior. They enjoy that type of behavior, but they recognize that there are like pros and cons. That's all I ever ask for for people in life to do, right? So like I'm a big markets guy because I recognize that there are times when markets are very powerful, but I also recognize there are times where markets like completely and totally fucking fail to deliver on a certain thing, and we need to have like some kind of government intervention there. Usually when people talk about like these things in the middle, they're tying the thing to the outcome that they want to achieve, and then that thing becomes like morally inseparable. So like I think that affordable housing is really important. I think that we should all be able to afford some kind of place to live, but like rent control is not the way to do it. I don't believe that based on everything that I've seen. But people will tie rent control to the affordable housing, and then if you oppose like a rent control, or if you oppose like a billionaire tax, you must hate poor people. And yeah, that's just the issue that I have, is that people can't engage with like the pros and cons of any particular thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a kind of perspective where you're just kind of rational and pragmatic, but from my perspective, like markets are true, like free markets being the better way to deliver things. So that makes you right wing in my kind of understanding.
I never say they're better. I say markets are real, markets are powerful, and they cannot be ignored. That's all I would say. They can't be ignored. If you want to influence one with the government, you can do it, but acknowledge that there's going to be side effects, right? Every time. Yeah.
Yeah. And hard leftists don't believe that, and like populist JD Vance types, right, don't believe that either. Trump types don't believe that either. They think they can just brute force whatever kind of society they want instead of market forces. And even some of the policies, like no corporate ownership of homes and like stuff like that, is like there's kind of this horseshoe thing with people who don't trust the markets. So.
Sure. I have this I would agree with you. It's very annoying. I'll just say that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Steve, it's been great talking to you. Can I get you to actually? You said you could read long form. Can I get you to read my book if I send you one?
Maybe I'll buy the Kindle. There are 2 other big things I'm reading right now, but I put it on my list. Okay.
You can get the Audible too, which I read, and you can Kindle and follow along. It's pretty cool. You can read, and then it'll like take you where you are in the audiobook, and you can get up, go wash dishes or whatever, go back, read more.
Oh, cool. That's a cool feature. Okay. Final question. Is Mitch McConnell alive or dead right now? What do you think?
I haven't been following along, honestly. I've looked at it a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. Mitch McConnell is kind of an underrated figure as far as like American history and its place in it. And it's funny how much rightists hate him because he's kind of been a ruthless operator. And my Mitch McConnell take on this stuff has always been like, this just shows how retarded these populists are, because it's just kind of the way he looks and the way he talks.
Oh, sure.
And there's nothing he could have done to make like the Republican base like him, even though he was very conservative and very effective.
And he got shit done. I say the same thing about Pelosi. It's so funny how like so many of these new up and comers like, oh, we hate Pelosi. And it's like there's a reason why Republicans fucking went in on this woman so much. Like she was
Pelosi's hot though for what 75 or 80. I mean, she was quite the looker back in the day.
Sure. Okay. Sure. Yeah,
note. All right, Steve. All right, good talking to you, man.
Yeah, have a good one. Be careful. Okay, back to the real media. What did Queen Pokey say?
I feel like in high school, there should be a psychology.
Oh, hold on. Split the VOD. Talk about the movie. Wait, you wanted to share a movie about how you can only tell your environment as a child was bad when you get older and are out of it with more perspective. Oh, if you ever have a chance to watch a movie, don't read the plot synopsis because it sounds so boring, but I highly recommend a movie called the Florida Project. Some movies, I've said this before, but like some movies have this idea of you have like middle class, and then like lower class or working class or whatever you want to call it is just like middle class, but like with less things. But there is a level of dysfunction that starts to come in that is very difficult to capture. Sometimes if a person doesn't have experience with it, and it's not just like walking in and being like, oh wow, like your guys' food isn't as nice, and your guys' your dinner plates aren't as nice, or your mom has to work a little bit more. But there's dysfunction that's very hard to capture. I think Good Time, I feel like, also captures a level of dysfunction as well. But yeah, The Florida Project is a very, very good movie, I think. Wait, we've got Trump talking about Mitch. Wait, we did watch all of it?
manipulation that leaves scars that people can't see. I feel like if there was a little bit more knowledge and education surrounding these topics, people would end up in less difficult situations. And also, I feel like it would save so many children from growing up in like traumatizing, abusive homes because it starts with the parents. It starts with the relationships.
Somebody said the biggest aware moment is seeing how like a friend's family functions when you visit. Ooh, especially a differently classed friend. Abso-fucking-lutely. There were, I don't know why, I feel like my upbringing was so weird. There were definitely experiences like up and down, where there were certain friends where I would go to their house and just like the way that they, like the concept of everybody has to sit at the table, you have to, and then everybody kind of like talks about their day and whatever, that was like a very like, what the fuck? Like this is a super functional environment. I hated that as a kid though, even seeing other families like that because I just want to play fucking video games, okay? Fuck you. And then on the flip side of that, because my upbringing was not super dysfunctional, I wouldn't say, but on the flip side of that, being at a friend's house and then hearing like a parent shout at like a friend's brother, and then that brother like shouting back at the parent, I was like, oh shit, what the fuck? I didn't even know you could do that. You could scream at your own parent. That's crazy. So there's just like different, there's so many different up and down things that are just like crazy sometimes. Yeah.
They're a little bit out of control, but they want to make a deal. Badly. So, at the beginning? No, I haven't. I have no idea. I have no idea how he's doing. At the beginning of. They're a little bit.
I mean, he could just hate McConnell because he hates the Senate and he hates everything going on in Congress because he just hates them all or whatever. So what do you want me to say? Did Destiny just spend 2 hours talking about how bad rape culture was only to give Hanania a complete pass on his terrible rape takes because he wanted to help Hanania sell his book? Gave him a complete pass? I feel like he was relatively ambivalent or in the middle on things. I don't think it's anything too crazy. Did I miss it? What is this? Your dumbass is shielding a criminal who stole $2.4 million in taxpayer-funded benefits meant to help at-risk pregnant women and women with young kids. She's spending the next decade in federal prison thanks to this administration. Relentless. Vance pointing to picture obscured by light. Look at this woman.
Bag. But look at this woman in the front with the smug look and the Louis Vuitton.
Okay, I don't even know. Wait, okay. I don't care about Kolinsky's takes. Friends don't let friends continue to give exams and papers that are not adapted to the current AI landscape. This is after 27 bailed, so the reality is even worse. Wait, what is this? Econ 1170 midterms and final scores. After Serrano made the final in person, 18 students dropped the class and 9 students did not take the exam. The scores of the remaining 59 students are displayed here. I will say, for us to draw a greater inference from this, we would need to know what the ordinary gaps are between the midterm score and the final exam score, Because if we found out that they were similar-ish, then